has written about it, and he says that linguistic imperialism means that you are actually valorizing some languages at the cost or at the expense of others. And this is mainly because of, as they've also indicated, the hegemony of English. Everybody wanting to speak English. And you are also discounting certain language varieties. And I can attest to that because I'm Afrikaans speaking, and I can assure you that the variety that I'm used to speak at home, which is Kaaps, was never ever recognized in school or at university. And we also knew that you would be thought of as stupid, not intelligent, not being worthy of being in learning context should you open your mouth and speak the vernacular. So I'm just so happy to hear that here at Rhodes we actually provide a safe space, a very enabling space for all our students to feel included. And having said that, I must also remind you that this is what the language policies, the language policy and other related policies at Rhodes are all about. It's about inclusivity, it's about representation, and it's about valuing our students and our staff, valuing what they bring from home, and making them aware that that is just as legitimate as English. Okay? So that was quite interesting. And then just some interesting things about Lalo is that she has had an award-winning multilingual play, which was called Tipalo, and she co-authored that with Jeannie Manning. And it was showcased recently at the 2019 Cradle of Creativity Festival in Cape Town. So you can see that multilingualism is really gaining traction. And those of us, and I'm sure it's not anyone sitting here, who claim to be monolingual, we are actually at a disadvantage if we can't change and if we can't sort of make an effort to become at least bilingual or multilingual. Okay, so that was quite a mouthful. So now that our two colleagues have mentioned how translanguaging and multilingualism can be used to make meaning in the classrooms, I'm sure that you are actually wondering, but what can I do for my own students? And to help us with that, to give us some ideas, my colleague Joanne. Oh, will you? Oh, okay. Okay, so Joanne will later, she will talk about that, about funding opportunities to conceptualize and to engage in multilingual strategies for our students. So she will talk about that, what is available here at Rhodes. And I must say that Rhodes is a very enabling space. So there is funding, there is support, there are resources. It's just a matter of us tapping into that. But Joanne will show us more about that later on. So I'm sure that you have a lot of questions. And as I've mentioned earlier, exactly what is translanguaging? So we'll ask our two presenters to just come and have a seat here, if they don't mind. And then we'll open the floor for questions. Any question that you might have, any burning issue. Because I'm sure you sat there and listened and you wondered, but actually how does that work? Well, what would it look like in my own context? And they're here to answer your questions. Is there anybody who have a burning question? Some things that you'd like to clarify?
I just wonder if you can clarify for me, and I do try, but I get confused all the time, the difference between simply code switching, this, switching from one language to the other, and translanguaging. Is there a difference, or is it really just the same thing?
Just because my eyes, when I look this way, I see somebody who opened this for us in class by the name of Sisonke. I would like to put you on the spot and echo her sentiments. Can you please help us, Sisonke?
Okay, with code switching, the difference between code switching and translanguaging is that translanguaging, it focuses mostly on meaning switching where
Just
it is
contact,
just
hello.
yes. And I like the example that Usandi made, talking when she was referring to it, the exercise that she did where she asked us to define wealth in our home languages. That is translanguaging. Yes, because this is when you get to sort of harvest from your own linguistic resources what really wealth means. And
So code
this really
switching
depends
is more
on
like you're having a
context.
conversation where you just speak a little bit of English, a little bit of Xhosa, a little bit of Afrikaans. You're just all
Yes.
talking in whatever language you like, but it's not about creating meaning.
It is
That helps such a lot.
Mm.
Thank you.
So it's underlying
I
meaning.
think I might have it now. If I don't,
I'm not sure this is quite it. I mean, when you speak, you make meaning all the time, communicate. I'm not sure we can classify code switching as of a lower hierarchy or as of a lower grade
It's more
compared to...
conversational than.
Not necessarily.
no.
You-
Okay.
Not necessarily classifying it as what you are saying, Dean, but with translanguaging, they're more related, right? Because they all multilingual strategies. But unlike code switching, with translanguaging, you use what you have. You use whatever that you have to sort of put it out there, and it does not necessarily have to be verbally, but it can be performance arts or whatever.
I tend to think that one is internal and one is external. So for example, when I talk about external for code switching, it's like I want to try and make meaning for more than myself. But if it's translanguaging, I'm drawing from my linguistic repertoire. It's internal. That's why then I encourage you that what is this? Okay, so for example, then you say this concept, but now for you, what does it mean for you? Oh, okay, this is what it means for me. But if I'm worrying about you, then how am I going to make it easy for you? Then I have this concept and I try to change it maybe in another language that I think you may understand.
Yeah.
So somehow it helps me to see one is internal and one is external.
Yeah, just to add on that.
And
again,
there's a power
so-
dynamics also now that also come into place, because now if it's external, then it means then there's some language that actually, even when I engage, it seems that it has to be explained somehow. But if you want to break those barriers and find ways in which we collectively move towards a shared meaning, it's not that easy, and that's become some kind of a process.
Okay.
Yeah. And I've listened to a talk that Prof. Nkoma has given, and I've written it down. He said the difference between translanguaging and code switching is there is a boundary between the two, because he says crossing the boundary, but translanguaging doesn't care about codes, because it's not the codes which are important, but the meaning. So in translanguaging, your focus would not be on the errors that are being made. It's more about creating that understanding. But as you've indicated, it's not a subservient form of meaning making. Yeah, it's actually a more intense, at a higher level actually.
I made a story that, so for example, where I was going to school, there was somebody who had to be a Sesotho speaker. So if you had speaking your own language, then this person moves around. So your names are written, and then these names are going to be submitted to the teacher, and then we're going to be left. And I didn't realize in 2016 when I directed a 100% production for the Market Theatre called Musadio Neilenyena, where brewing beer was a big part of this production, just how much my own culture, my own identity, my own repertoire had been stripped off from that fear, now also into like they also shared the importance of research, that I was never really allowed to research in such a way that I feel that empowered, I feel that confident to speak in my own language. So I had a sense of how these codes, they are actually meaningless if I'm being given an opportunity to explore myself, because other codes of how you speak English, how I'm even barred to speak my own language, has somehow been an oppressive measures. That's why I say for me, translanguaging also gets to be a social justice project.
Any more questions? Do you want to respond to that, or do you have
No,
another
I
question?
want to ask you a question.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah, let me firstly say thank you very much to our two speakers. You're doing a very interesting work. But my question is directed to Sandy, which I'm very curious, because part of your presentation mostly focused on teaching and learning in the classroom, which I think is very transformative in the decolonial project. But I'd be interested in knowing, do you see a need for trans-languaging for assessment? Because you mostly spoke about teaching and learning and how the meaning making happens in the classroom. So I'm interested and curious in understanding, is there a need, firstly, for trans-languaging? Did you see the need in trans-languaging for assessment? Because I think trans-languaging for assessment can enable knowledge production in African languages, which I think is a very interesting decolonial and transformative
Yeah,
project.
thank you for the question. Yeah, I do agree with you. I think there is a need, but then the question is, do we have resources to do that? So, as I have mentioned in the example, that even when the way we assess students, even using English, they really struggle to understand. And as a result, I think it can do a social justice to students, because some students fall just because they didn't understand. And the minute you you translate to them what the question really means, they will be like, hey, I know this, and then they will start, to answer you. So there is a need, but then the question is, how can we do that, knowing very well that we have to develop the concept that we can all agree that in isiZulu, this is the way maybe we can define utility. And so it's a process that we really need to think about and in coming up with our own concepts, terminologies, and so forth. So it will really help. Yeah.
And in terms of resources, according to our revised language policy, we will have a task team. There's actually a task team at the moment looking at how to offer language services where something like that would be included here at university. So there is a task team assigned to do that and to look into issues like that.
Just to add on what Sandy has said, who spoke as she did something like that. I think she still does.
Yes.
In her classes in politics, where she gets students to write in languages other than English or in their own languages, and it's really been quite successful. But it's been quite successful, but then with me, what I really look at is concept literacy more than anything, because what I've noticed is that once students get the gist of the concept or what the concept means, then it becomes easier for them to answer questions.
Tina said she doesn't want her students to speak English. She wants them to speak statistics.
Because then the students, they can speak English. They do have the interpersonal skills of hi, how are you, Ujani, and but then the problem is when it's the concepts, and once they understand that, then it becomes easier for them to write essays and
even in English then, when they develop the concepts and cognitions. Yeah. So it's almost, it's part of the process of learning.
yeah, but it would be really nice to get there
Yeah.
And let me also remind you that there is research on that at school. There's two terms that we use, PIGS and CALP. So the PIG, what we refer to is when we say, yes, all our students can speak English and they sound so good. That is the basic interpersonal communication skills. So they sound as if they know and as if they can. But CALP is the cognitive academic language proficiency, which means it's the higher order thinking skills, which have not developed if they learned in English and the mother tongue was abandoned along the way. So you could look up those terms and just find out more information about that.
I have a question. Actually, I'm quite keen to learn from any of the students that might be here. Then how it feels like because you see, the thing is like English has this currency and there's this investment that has been made, and you would want to like really, it's almost like you want to learn in English, and somebody who wants to speak these other things, it's almost like now taking me to where I don't want to, because I have experienced some sort of like resistance to saying it is okay, but people say no, but I want to speak English, but you say no, it's okay, you can speak English, but there's some kind of like resistance and resentment. So I'm keen to find out from the students how then the introduction then of these concepts actually, how does it feel like for them?
So any response to that?
Okay, just to answer on that, I was doing Politics 1 last year, but Dr. Makadle introduced like translating scripts, even assignments, like tutorials and all that. You would get a Xhosa version of it, Zulu version of it, and you would get the concept, the theory. And if you go to Google and try to define, ask maybe what is patriarchy, it will give you English. And then now when you translate it into Xhosa, it's not giving you that thing. It's not giving you the full concept or the definition or meaning of it. So it gets to be difficult now when it comes to me as a Xhosa speaking person, grow up and went to a Xhosa school, and then now all of a sudden I'm here and given these theories and all that. It's so hard for me to digest it in my mind, because firstly I need to translate it to my native language and then try my best to be relevant enough and make the lecturer understand what I'm trying to say. And then mind you that the English is limited. It's not something that I grew up having, and like, so it's not easy. It's not easy at all, even in lectures, like lecture rooms. It's not easy. When you sit there, you sometimes zone out, and then some other words, you miss them. Because you see them laughing and you're like, okay, I missed that part because they are using these bombastic words and you get nothing. Yes. So it's not easy.
Sure, very insightful comments here. Anybody else? There is actually a lot of research pointing out that there is quite a lot of resistance to mother tongue. A colleague and friend of mine, Bernie Miller, she has published on this because she has introduced, I think it was Zulu and isiXhosa texts. And she also found, and she gave students the option they could choose. And the students preferred the English. So obviously we'll have to do some more research to see really why that is. But just from anecdotal evidence, we can see that it's because students know that outside or like the wider community will not accept or value their mother tongue. Yeah, Sue?
Sorry, it's slightly off the conversation, so I don't know if I want to change direction. But just to make sure everyone knows, I hope everyone knows, that the research committee made a decision which was approved at Senate, that what has been happening informally in some departments will now become widely encouraged, which is that all masters and PhD students should write their abstract in both English and their home language. It's not a rule, we can't enforce it, but to try as far as possible. And I know that our experience of our students doing that has been enormously powerful, probably more in terms of identity and recognition and inclusion of family members necessarily than in terms of publications and so on. But I think it's a worthwhile thing to do. So those of us in the room that are supervisors, please, the Senate has agreed that we're going to try and get all masters and PhDs to have two versions of their abstracts.
Sounds like a lovely initiative, eh? There's a comment at the back or question?
I wanted to answer a question, I think, about why students resent their mother tongues. I think it has to do with the thing that people think that English determines your level of intelligence. So if you can't speak English, then you are not intelligent. And also, there are some terms that you cannot find in your own language. Because we can say that, maybe say I'm taught in Setswana, but I won't be able to fully understand. For me, I feel like I won't be able to understand the concepts because some of the words we don't have them in Setswana. The language is not that developed, like especially like with technological advancements. There are some devices that we cannot name in Setswana, and we always have to go back to English.
There's another question or comment?
Yes, thank you so much. Just a quick comment on the issue of resistance into learning in your mother tongue. especially in the context of the Eastern Cape in particular. I think what she's mentioned just now is the issue of the lack of having terms, especially scientific and technological terms in our languages. There's been a research around that. I did a bilingual course in the rural Transkei and also here in Grahamstown, whereby students were provided with a course which is in Xhosa and in English. Then they would have to choose whether to use English or Xhosa. Obviously, for the reason that she's just spoken to, students will go, learners rather, will go for English because of the attitude. I think the issue that we're discussing here is the issue of attitude, which is linked to what she says, that English has been seen as the language of power, as the language of access to everything. But in reality, in practice, you give students something, whatever material in English, especially the learners in high school. They try to learn that in English, they struggle. Their first point of reference would be the Xhosa material. Because they understand Xhosa better than English. For an example, the one example which is quite famous that we make is a central processing unit, CPU. You go to rural areas and you ask them, what is a CPU? You tell them it's a central processing unit. How can you tell us? How can you explain that? Then they get stuck with that. You translate that into Xhosa. You say, ingqondo ye-computer. And the kids will understand that ingqondo thinks, calculates. You get my point? Then to them that makes a lot of sense when you say it's ingqondo ye-computer. Whereas when it's in English, it's central processing unit, it doesn't make any sense. Then the issue of lack of terminology in African languages is the issue that we're dealing with, because there are terms but are not used because of the attitude. If you come and speak in Xhosa, you are not seen as an intellectual by other people. But once you start to use English, we regard you as this person, a learned person. You get my point? Then this has everything to do with our history and the colonialism. Let us agree on that note. Then, what I'm trying to say is that in spaces like this, it's a great move that we get a chance to hear people who use translanguaging. People will become birds in Xhosa, a bird in Xhosa. That might be a noisy bird in Xhosa. In Nangade, for an example, it's an interesting bird. Then in these spaces, once you hear that, then your understanding becomes better. Then my point is that there are projects, there are endeavors in place whereby we are developing our African languages. Here at Rhodes, we teach a lot of our courses in Xhosa and English. For example, I teach human language technology, which deals with technology. Then in that case, they're learning about technology, your X in Xhosa. The fourth industrial revolution in Xhosa. What does that mean? You get my point? Then the point is that the issue is the awareness, firstly, and we need to deal with the issue of attitude. There are terms in place, that's what I wanted to emphasize. Thanks.
Yes, just to add on that point, I think, yes, the real challenge is with attitude, because I remember when I started this in class, and one of the students asked me, ma'am, I don't understand the question. What is the question saying? And then all of the students just laughed. Everyone laughed, and I was like, okay, I waited, and then they stopped, and I was like, guys, why are you laughing? And they continued. I was like, okay, since you know, explain to me what she is asking. Tell me the question, I mean the answer. And no one could do that. I was like, guys, please be mature. So it's something that we really have to deal with and make students feel safe and aware that I'm not even an English speaker. I struggle. I even tell my students sometimes, I'll be like, the word is not coming. I'll be like, guys, the word is not coming. The word is not coming. English is not my mother tongue. And everyone will laugh. Then the following class, everyone will feel free to embrace that, ma'am, I don't understand. What do you mean? I'm like, so if we try and relate, and I I don't go to class and be like, because I know I'm not that person. So I tell my student, so please feel free with me. Ask any question in your own language. If I don't understand, I will ask someone in class to please translate for me so that I will be able to answer the question. So yes, the issue of attitude is a problem, because most of the students rather come to me after class or in the office to ask questions, so they don't feel safe in classes. So others, by the way, are brave enough to ask, and yeah, it's a process, but eventually I think it's doable.
Okay, last comment, because we have to wrap up now.
I was about to say, just to round up that question. From one of the findings that came out from my master's research was that actually students, the thing is, students, they want access to English. That we can't really deny. They want access to English because of what they think that English is going to bring them at the end of the day, right? But at the same time, there's research that was done at the UWC where students, while they want access to English, they also still want to pass. And they actually do realize, well, I'm talking about university context now, I don't know because it's mostly the parents that decide for the learners. Anyway, they want access to English, but then at the same time, they also realize that they need to pass, and the only way that they can pass is to have access to their primary languages. So most of the recommendations that come is that their primary languages, there needs to be find a way where they are integrated, right? And strategies such as translanguaging, is one of those, and there's also technology planning and so on and so forth. But I think what we also need to think about is we shouldn't be putting all the responsibility on students and peer learning and all that. We had a transformation summit, and there were things that were done. We need to have, transformation and all these nice things that we're always talking about. We need to get our colleagues onto the party. We can't rely on peer learning in the classrooms all the time, but we need to have these conversations with our monolingual colleagues and with other people as well. And
Thank you so much for that comment, and thank you for everybody's input. It was very insightful, and I think what I can take out of this, Lalo, I'll give you a chance now. What I can take out of this is that language is such an emotive concept, because we've heard about shame and guilt, and feelings like feeling useless and not intelligent and all those kinds of things. So actually what we realize is that our work as academics and as students, we have our work cut out. We can't rely on government to do the same that they did for Afrikaans and English development, because government is not going to do that, so who will do that? So the onus is on us, and we've seen that, as you mentioned, in the Transformation Summit, that there are definite strategies being advised that we can engage with to do that. So Joanne, just really briefly, just tell us about the funding opportunities that are available.
Okay, so there are a number of initiatives that are being funded by government through the University Capacity Development Grant. And Andrea is right. The amount of money is not near the amount of money that was spent, for example, on developing Afrikaans as an academic language. And there's a lot of work that needs to be done to develop African languages as academic languages. And we need to work closely together in order to strategize around what we can do to enable that development. One of the projects relates to translating, as opposed to translanguaging, key concepts into isiXhosa, and you saying that you've got many students who are Zulu speakers. So we would need to look at what are the most spoken languages, and then develop concepts in those languages in order to facilitate student understanding. And the School of Languages have agreed to set aside time to find people who can help academics to do that in the various disciplines. It's something that costs money, so if you want to do that, then you're welcome to write to Churtle, to me, or to come and see me at Churtle. I'm Joanne Forster, and I'm currently the head of Churtle, so that you would need to apply for that funding through me. That's one thing that we can do. Another way is to think through how we can develop students writing in the disciplines. Now, the writing in the disciplines happen through the medium of English mostly. But we've learned tonight that it's really important to do the conceptual development in order to be able to, for students to write in the discipline in English. Two of my colleagues, Kirsten Wilmot, who's sitting here, as well as Carol Thompson, run a short course. It's going to be run for the 3rd time this year, and it's called Writing in the University. And the course will be run during the October SWAT week, which I think is 22 to 25 October, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, 22 to 25 October. It's called Writing in the University, Ways of Knowing, Ways of Being. And part of what we've heard here tonight is that learning in the university is not only about what happens in the head, it's also about what happens in the body. And it's about ways of being in the university, ways of being in the world. And so that course is about developing writing, but it's also about thinking through, how we integrate the knowing and the being through the development of writing. So I would like to encourage you, if you haven't done that course yet, to sign up for it. 22 to 25 October. And Kirsten Williams and Wilmot, sorry, and Carol Thompson. And you can find their contact details via the Churtle website.
Thank you, Joanne. So that brings us to the end of our conversation. It was very interesting, but I think all of us realize that this needs to be ongoing. So I would like to encourage you to please keep your eyes open for similar events. I know that in collaboration with the Language Committee, we will also have other events later this year on campus. And also feel free to contact our presenters, Sanjili Pakati and Selohani Mokuku, if you want to engage further or have questions for them. But we'd also like to share a few eats with you outside. And just thank you for...
Can I just say one more thing before we go to the eats? If you are doing anything interesting related to using languages as a resource, please let Anthea know. Also, we would like to, develop a series of case studies, short case studies, to share our practices. And so, if you've got anything interesting to share, then help us to contribute, or help to contribute to, to developing this resource and sharing knowledge more widely about how we can teach our students better.
And just one last thing, please ensure that you do sign the register, otherwise you won't have funding to have similar events. And let's just give another round of applause.